Activating emergency CPR. Vital signs stabilizing.
Sunlight. I've been dreaming of it for months. But it's hard to enjoy alone. They do not want us down there. Shouldn't have gone so deep.
Hey everyone, it's Soul here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. For today's video, I wanted to take a look at a game that I think many of you, if you haven't played it already, have at the very least heard of. Today we will be discussing Subnautica. Now the game itself is a survival-based game, but for so many reasons that we will be looking at today, it has become a massive success, going above and beyond many other survival games, and even getting popular enough to gain a sequel and have a third game currently in the works. But how did this basic sounding survival game go on to gain so much success and such a loyal and dedicated fandom? How does the writing and the story elements help this game stand above so many others? Stick around to find out. Real quick before we jump into it, I currently have a poll up on my community tab on YouTube for you guys to let me know which game you want me to do a deep dive analysis on next. It will be similar in format to my Until Dawn and the Quarry videos, with it being around an hour long and taking a closer look at all of the characters and following the main story. So please go and vote. I will be leaving it up for a week from the release of this current video before I go and buy the actual winning game to begin to play it. The choices are Detroit Become Human and Life is Strange. So please go and vote over there. Also, please remember to hit that like button, click subscribe to see more videos from me, and leave a comment down below. Here is your one and only warning that this video contains spoilers. Alright, grab your sea glide and give your cuttlefish a treat, and let's dive in. Subnautica is a game that was officially released in January 2018, being published under Unknown Worlds Entertainment. The game itself, as I've already said, is a survival game, as you get to play as the sole survivor of a spaceship called the Aurora that crashed into this mysterious alien planet, Planet 4546b. As players try to not only keep themselves alive, build shelters, and discover all of the new creatures on this alien planet, the game then takes some interesting twists and turns that drives the players to find a way to escape the watery doom of this planet. Before I get into my main 3 reasons as to why this game is so successful, I want to first point out the minor things that this game just does so well. The first thing that many people will notice is that the water effects look outstanding. Creating and animating water in video games is something that has always been a bit tricky to have, and so having a game that is entirely underwater look so visually good, it is really impressive. Going off of that, the visuals as a whole just look great. The bright colors and the contrasting textures and color palettes for each and every different terrain or biome, it not only makes this game fun to look at on screen for us players, but it also helps convey different emotions. This kind of leads me into my next point, and that this game does a great job at drawing out emotions of players through the use of the audio and visuals. The soundtrack itself is so helpful in immersing the players, and there are some really great songs that add to that uneasy feeling of perhaps the Grand Reef, or maybe add to the tension of the cloudy waters around the Aurora. Now, aside from the music alone, you also have the added sound effects and monster and creature noises. The long drones of the reefbacks are horrifying upon first hearing them, but after some time in the waters, they start to become like a calming melody. The screeching sound of the Reaper as they appear out of the depths, it's absolutely terrifying. Then you also have the fan favorite crab squid noises, and everything just all works so well in creating tension, chills, and scares. With the visuals on screen and the audio cues working so well together, the game starts to take on a really uneasy feeling for most first-time players, with every few hundred meters down, bringing in new sights, sounds, and terrors. While these things definitely add to what makes this game a hit, there are 3 big reasons that I think this game is so incredibly successful. First and most obvious is probably the story. Next up, you have the game being what I like to call a product of the internet. And then finally, you have the fans themselves. So let's get into it. The first and the most obvious thing that sets this game apart from other survival games is the incredible story. Now, when thinking of a survival game, the first thing that will probably come to many people's minds is Minecraft. You farm, you fight hostile enemies, you get to build shelters, dig into the terrain, and the only true goal that is set by the game itself is to survive, and that's it. The rest is all up for grabs. Now, there is the tiniest bit of plotline, and that's me using the word plotline very, very loosely. But you have the tiniest plot details of the Ender Dragon and the Anti-Steve, but the quote-unquote story of Minecraft has quite obviously been put on the back burner compared to the survival features and the cool and fun things that you get to do related to the open world features, such as exploring new creatures and the nature that comes in the world building. Most survival games do tend to follow this pattern, with the story almost always being put on the back burner. But that's not necessarily the case for Subnautica. Now, don't get me wrong, Subnautica does have an incredible survival feature with the addition of the oxygen levels on top of the usual food, water, and health measures. With this game being mostly underwater, the game also has some really fun and creative creatures and landscapes that make the game so exciting and intriguing for players to explore, as they get to learn about all of the different ecosystems that change at every single depth and location. However, in addition to all of that, Subnautica has a much stronger emphasis on the story elements while still managing to keep the survival and open world features in the front of players' minds. The story of Subnautica is not only really well written, but it is perfectly paced, as we are always left with some sort of growing mystery to pull us in and have us want to continue searching for the next step in the story. Now, I am going to briefly sum up the events of Subnautica, so if you do not wish to know of the full story, I would advise that you skip ahead to the next section. Or if you want to just watch another video that kind of recaps this in a bit more depth than what I am going to, I will have a video linked down below. Now, when you first start Subnautica, you crash land in the shallow section of the water. Players will begin to learn about the creatures and the area around their own life pod, and just as you are starting to get used to this alien planet and just getting used to surviving, getting food, water, etc., the mystery of other survivors comes into play, with radio signals coming in from other life pods. But sadly, every single time you go to another survivor's life pod, they are missing, with the pod itself seemingly being ripped open and destroyed. A grim mystery begins to unfold in these messages from the other life pods and crew, as sounds of a creature roaring and comments from crew members suggest the presence of some large hostile creature, possibly causing the grim fates for all of these survivors. Now, this in and of itself works as an amazing scare tactic, as it sets the player's nerves on edge, and it feels like we are almost waiting for this inevitable beast and monster to come and attack us. But after a while, whether you have an encounter with the Reaper Leviathan or not, the mystery of the life pods will start to slowly fade away as you get used to the idea of all of these life pods being empty, and you once again come to terms with the fact that you are the sole survivor. Now, you also start to get a bit more used to the waters and the dangers, and so your fear starts to dwindle ever so slightly as this mystery fades away. But that is only temporary, as we get the introduction of the next mystery and level of the story in the form of the mysterious island. With the hopes of being rescued by the ship called Sunbeam, players rush over to the meeting area on this island that is covered by clouds when you look at it from the distance. The island is revealed to be packed full of mystery and intrigue, with some sort of alien building or structure that is there. Now, the existence of there having been some sort of previous alien life form, or perhaps something that is just a bit higher intelligence than your average peeper, it leaves players fascinated and with so many questions, such as where are these life forms now? As players explore the area a bit more, they discover the idea of there being this infection, the Kurar bacterium, that is slowly destroying everything on the planet. It can then be assumed that the alien life forms that built this structure had fled to escape the infection. But there is not much more information released in this game, so the idea of these life forms, what they were like, where they were going, things like that, is still up in the air for this game. Now, the Sunbeam ship then gets shot down by this structure as it turns into a defense weapon, leaving the players with one way out: to get cured, disable this weapon, and escape via a ship. With the exciting and exhilarating, but also sadly tragic events of the Sunbeam getting shot down, players are left with a sort of excitement and sudden burst of energy as they now have a clear task that is set forward by the game itself. Yet, they still have the option to dilly-dally around and have some fun building their own shelters and just exploring the world to their heart's extent. While the mission is clear to get off the planet by finding a cure, how you go about finding a cure isn't necessarily clear right away. So as players are getting used to this new idea, diving deeper than they wanted to before in order to find any sort of clue about how to cure this disease, the game once again throws the players a bit of a mystery and curveball. Players will start to get these weird visions of the Sea Emperor Leviathan, and honestly, it is terrifying the first time you have this sort of connection. As players continue the game, diving deeper into the depths, they start to discover more and more structures as well as the bones and skeletons of other Leviathan-class creatures, which only adds to the intrigue even more. In the research base down by the Lost River, players start to discover the idea that the Kurar bacterium can be cured through the Sea Emperor Leviathan's existence. However, it is also apparent that the previous life forms on this planet were testing and using these Sea Leviathan babies and hatchlings to some sort of wrongdoing and harm, with the base being attacked and all of these different levels of mystery as the players keep going. It really helps to keep us intrigued while also giving us only so little of the game. I think that balance of how much information they release at a time is so well done, and it honestly deserves a huge round of applause, because sometimes if you force feed or put out too much information at once, it becomes easier for players to kind of ignore it. If they were to just info dump all of the lore and history of these previous life forms, I just don't think people would have been as interested as they are in what actually happened. It's so much easier to gloss over something when it is just all hitting you at once than spacing it out and leaving us this little breadcrumb trail that keeps us wanting more. And the creators also do this spaced out info trail with the information related to the survivors of the Degassi crash. Now, throughout the game, you will be finding 3 different bases that look very similar to the equipment and tools that you will be using yourself. With this, you discover that there were 3 other survivors from a previous ship that had crashed, or as we now know, had been shot down by the defense weapon on the mysterious island. With helpful information on how to survive in this planet, as well as information related to the lore and existence of these 3 survivors, Paul, Bart, and Marguerite, it adds a whole nother layer of plotlines, characters, and just so much more intrigue to the story. I mean, this game is really just packed full with layers upon layers of mystery and intrigue, and it just makes it so special. So with this game constantly throwing out little snippets of the story that us players have to sort of piece together on our own as we go on throughout the game, that constant intrigue and mystery really pulls us in, keeping us immersed in the story all the way to the point that we finally end up hatching and freeing the Sea Emperor Leviathans, curing ourselves and the planet from the Kurar disease that has caused the planet to be put in lockdown. With such a detailed storyline that captivates us players, No one has ever seemed to experience this sort of balance of open world features and survival games with such a strong, driven narrative. And that balance and all of the elements and the mysteries in the story itself is one of the main reasons why this game is so successful. It simply hadn't been done before to this extent of story-driven balance in a survival game, and it's really impressive how they were able to pull it off so precisely. The next thing, and what I would argue is probably the most impactful aspect that I feel helped set this game apart and help launch it into its position of success, is the fact that this is a product of the internet. Now, while the official game was released in 2018, the early release and early access had actually come out back in 2014. It was incredibly different and much more minimalistic, and it was purely a survival game. But similar to the sort of luck of pure timing that we saw in Until Dawn, this game was lucky enough to be out during what I like to call the golden days of YouTube gaming, with its full release coming out in what I guess you could call the slight resurrection of YouTube games. Now, for those of you that may not be chronically online like myself, let me just explain what I mean. 2014 to 2015 was the height of YouTube gaming. PewDiePie was the #1 YouTuber in the whole world. Jacksepticeye and Markiplier were both thriving. The three of them were constantly doing collaborations. Felix himself had also been branching out into mainstream media, being invited on to The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. A lot of the British YouTubers who were really popular in 2010 to 2013 were starting to jump on the craze of the YouTube gaming side, with all of these YouTubers suddenly creating separate gaming channels. YouTube itself had a much lighter algorithm and way less restrictions than what we have now, and in all honesty, the YouTube community and the way it was just seemed to be a much happier place with so many people less focused on views and numbers. The gaming community itself on YouTube was also one of the biggest communities at that time, so it's no surprise that when people like Jacksepticeye and Markiplier started playing the early access Subnautica, fans started to take an interest in the games. With these young fans watching the game through these YouTubers, it definitely helped create a large fandom for the game itself. You also have to remember that a lot of these fans, myself included, were young high schoolers, or some were even middle schoolers, who kind of got to grow up with this game, so there is a bit of an emotional connection for many of the fans as they got to watch this game since day one, and then by the time the game was released in full, in 2018, they were 4 years older. Maybe they were out of school in college, or in the later years of high school, and they were probably a lot more likely to purchase the game themselves. But what is more important than this emotional connection and the free advertising that sort of came out of YouTube is the fact that the creators of Subnautica genuinely listened to all of the YouTuber feedback in order to improve the game in so many ways. Outside of the addition and the changes made to the story, the other most notable change would probably have to be the terraformer. Not only would that have caused so many problems on the tech end of things as it would tend to glitch out, but it would have also taken away from these story elements that they slowly added in over the years. There was also the concern that leaving the terraformer in would make this game feel a bit too similar to Minecraft and essentially having people call it the underwater version of Minecraft. So ultimately, the creators decided to scrap the idea of the terraformer, and just because the balance is so well done right now, I think it was the right decision. The creators also got to watch as hundreds of people would play and react to the game for each and every single update. They would get to see in real time which aspects of the story did people get intrigued by, what people liked, what people didn't like, and the creators could sort of lean into that more in the next update and so on and so forth. It really is a beautiful collaboration between the gamers, the fans, and the developers that brought this game to life. It is so difficult to imagine how this game might have ended up if that early release never happened when it did. If they released an early access much later, the game could have been too far into another direction to be swayed by the audience's reactions, and perhaps the YouTube algorithm might not have been as favorable to this game if it was released in, let's say, 2016 or 2017 for early access. The full release of the game itself also got a small swing of luck since in 2018, Minecraft had started to gain a lot more popularity and traction once more, with Twitch streamers and YouTubers alike starting to play through it again. Now, with Subnautica being ultimately a survival game, and therefore in the same subgenre as Minecraft, it's really no surprise that people made the jump to try out this brand new underwater survival game. The luck and the timing of this game plays a huge factor, but there is another reason aside from the YouTubers and the algorithm that falls into why I say that this game is a product of the internet. While the YouTube gamers are, well, expected to play video games, Subnautica reached other areas and corners of the internet than most video games do. This game had started to gain notoriety in the thalassophobia subreddits and even in the marine biologist community. I mentioned in the beginning how well the audio visuals had worked together to create emotions of fear and tension. So when you add those skills and features to a person playing this game who is already terrified of dark open water, and well, it just made for so many hit videos and reactions. Now, these Reddit chains were also just a huge topic of conversation around the time of the game's full release, so there definitely is some sort of overlap with the game, either having an impact on the popularity of these Reddit chains, or what I think is more likely, that the chains had an impact on the popularity of this game, with so many people who have thalassophobia trying to conquer that fear by playing this game. Either way you look at it, this overlap made for so many fun reactions. Now, the same sort of thing goes for the marine biologists. So many marine biologists would play through this game on YouTube. Now, the creativity and the detail in the alien creatures and the ecosystems in Subnautica had caught the attention of so many marine biologists, and with the fans of the game already loving the creatures and the world, seeing someone talk about how it may actually be connected to real-life creatures or marine life or marine function, seeing them react and approve of how the developers place certain things and aspects in different ecosystems and biomes, it was a huge hit. Now, out of all the games that I've seen where you have like a professional reacting to this sort of game based on their profession, for example, a mortician reacting to the mortuary assistant, videos like that, this one is definitely one of the bigger hits, with these really small channels gaining over 1 million views for one video. It is actually crazy to me how popular these videos became, and I just think as a whole, this game is so entwined with so many various aspects and corners of the internet, and that is why I just had to call it a product of the internet. Now, with that said, that concludes the second reason, and now we finally get to my third and final reason that this game is so successful, and that's all because of the fans. It goes without saying that any popular game is made better by its fandom, and it is 100% true. I am not trying to discredit that at all or discredit the fandoms of any other games. Most games, no matter how great, they are nothing without their fans. But the Subnautica fandom to me just seems a bit extra special, as they are sort of constantly putting out an array of videos, Reddit chains, and so much more to dissect this game and analyze it further. Now, I already talked about how the length of the 4-year early access helped create a group of dedicated fans due to its emotional ties caused by the public creation of the game, but the insane amount of just tutorial videos that are out there for this game is mind-boggling. Everything from these tutorials to public modifications and the planet lore have all been topics and discussions, and just the amount of world building that these videos and fans have helped bring to light is so impressive. Aside from just piecing together the parts of the storyline, the fans themselves were constantly asking and pushing for answers to the sort of precursors and alien life forms that came before the crash of the Aurora, the ones who sort of created these mysterious green structures. And if it wasn't for the persistence of the fans on this topic, I genuinely don't think that there would have been a sequel. It is because the fans' determination and constant intrigue and dissection of this story that they were able to create a second sequel that sort of answers a few of the questions surrounding these precursors, as well as to have a third game already in the works that I believe is set to release in late 2024. But I also think that one of the best things about this fandom is how open they are to newcomers. There are a lot of video games out there, video game communities, where when you're new to a game and you're struggling to find things out, it can definitely be just a little bit intimidating, and you can get some rude comments or just not welcoming feelings that can be found. However, with the Subnautica fandom, it is so nice and really helpful to have other fans teaching you tricks and tips about the game. It's a really nice thing to have such a welcoming and friendly environment, and it's one of those times that I can genuinely say I am so happy to be in this generation of technology, because without it, this sort of connection that we have through this game, the creation of this game being a product of the internet, the creation of this beautiful story being pushed through that right direction with the help of so many fans, the expansion of the world itself due to the fans' dedication and constant intrigue in the story and the world building is so incredibly beautiful to see, and I genuinely love the internet sometimes. So to sort of wrap things up here, Subnautica is not only a great game with beautiful graphics packed full of color and amazing audio, sound effects, and music that help draw the emotions of their players, but the strong narrative storyline balanced in this open world survival game, the game itself being a product of the internet, and the dedicated and kind fandom that has such a strong and emotional connection to the game is what sets this game apart and above so many other survival games, and is why Subnautica has become such a huge success. If you guys would like to know my thoughts on Subnautica Below Zero, please let me know, because in all honesty, my initial reaction is that it's not great, but perhaps taking a closer look at the story might change my opinion of that. So if you guys liked my discussion, please hit that like button down below and leave your thoughts in the comments section. While you're down there, click subscribe to see more videos from me, and turn on notifications if you want to be notified whenever I post a new video. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you future souls next time. Bye, guys!